Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Deputy Commissioner. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Just a couple of quick questions here, if I may, if you could just for my edification. When investigating a complaint of abuse or neglect with a child, could you give me like an idea of what percentage of the time it's conducted either telephonically or video or by other conferencing means?
I will give that over to our Bureau Chief.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have any data with me, but I would say the numbers would be really small at this time because we are back to operating with in-person visitation the way we were pre-pandemic.
Okay. During the pandemic period, it was significantly high, where it was remotely doing some sort of remote conferencing?
I know our Bureau Chief of Strategic Planning, who's not with us today, maintained those numbers throughout the time that we were relying on virtual visitation. So I'm sure that's something that we can get for you.
Okay. Could you give me an idea? I mean, during the pandemic period, would you say, I guess roughly was over half of the time it was done remotely, or?
I really don't have that information. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm just could you just give me like a Reader's Digest version here of what what the criteria, what the bar is if somebody makes a complaint of abuse or neglect against a child? When does that trigger an investigation where you guys act on it compared to where you may feel it's a frivolous allegation that has no merit to it? Can you kind of delineate that for me, where that line is?
So essentially, whether or not a report is accepted is based on statutes. So there's a statutory requirement for acceptance that we follow to the law. Generally, the allegations would have to have an impact on the child. You would have to connect the report, the information in the report, to determine whether or not the child is impacted, whether or not it is a parent, guardian, or meets, is a person who is defined by statutes as the one who is responsible for the child. But those decisions are clearly based on statutory requirements.
Okay, so I mean, looking at the language here in the bill, the proposal we have before us, my concern is certainly issues of abuse and neglect. No child should be abused or neglected in our state. We need to do everything to root that out. Anybody who harms a child in our state, I say lock them up and throw away the key. I take that. I have a no tolerance for anybody that abuses or neglects a child. I want to be very, very clear on that. My concern here with what's being talked about as far as carving out anybody that homeschools a child, who parents decide to homeschool a child, if there is some sort of allegation of abuse and neglect, where it could be as simple as somebody wants to cause that person a problem and it's meritless, they're going to be held to a different bar than somebody who chooses not to homeschool their child. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure everybody's held to the same standard. I can certainly attest that I know many people in my district. I have many friends who homeschool their children, have homeschooled their children in the past, who are now adults. They have done exceptionally well, have excelled in college, have excelled in life. Last thing I want to do is create a situation where it would encourage somebody could make a false allegation, and it could encourage people to do that. And essentially, they're going to be bound by, essentially, with all due respect to your agency, almost like a full and feathered access to their home, where they'd be bound to a completely different standard than somebody who doesn't homeschool children. I'm very, very concerned about that. But again, I want to make sure that every child, if there is a allegation of abuse and neglect, that all children are treated equally and make sure we have the same bar. I want to make sure we're not opening Pandora's box here and putting people who homeschool their children at a different standard than people who do not. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record. Thank you for appearing here today. Appreciate your testimony. And thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing further.